Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. We continue inshallah ta'ala with our series in regards to the act of worship of what is known as Tayammum, and we will come inshallah ta'ala to detail exactly the implications of what Tayammum means and how it's done and when it's done and what is it for. All of those things we need to inshallah ta'ala get to at a timely manner. But for now, as a backdrop for what Tayammum stands for, it is very necessary for us, inshaAllah ta'ala, to make a distinction between what the scholars defined as a major state of impurity and a minor state of impurity. Hadath akbar wa hadath asghar. No, this is what those terminologies of the fuqaha use usually. And to unpack those terminologies, they gave what constitute a major state of impurity are 5 things, and what constitutes a minor state of impurity are another 5 things. So those are the things inshallah ta'ala for us to cover now, and with it inshallah it will be a platform and a segue for us to move into a tayammum. When it comes to a major state of impurity, any person who gets into one of these 5 or more, he is on that state of impurity. One, for women, is, as we mentioned before, is the haid, and that is the menstrual cycle, the monthly period. Also, postpartum bleeding, that due to childbirth, nifas. Also, the penetration, and that is the consummation between men, the intercourse in other words, and also ejaculation of sperm. Also the wetness due to either erotic thoughts or flirting. So all of these are 5 things that constitute a person to be in a state of impurity. Now when it comes to minor state of impurity, it is due to 5 other things. Either urine, or meaning going to the bathroom for either number 1 or 2, or passing gas, or wadi or medi. Wadi and medi, when it comes to the liquids, subhanallah, that are a sort of a discharge that come out of both men and women, because when the Prophet ﷺ described and also at the same time gave the ruling about all of the 3 different types of discharges coming out of both men and women, he made it very clear that ma'ur rajuli kama'il mar'ah, that when it comes to those discharges coming out of men, they are the same as the ones coming out of men. They're the same. It's not like women have different discharge than men or the other way around. Other than the fact that what has to do with menstrual period, that is the cycle that they have, monthly period, or the postpartum bleeding, that is exclusive to women. But when it comes to the discharges, they are one of 3, either many, which what is well known to most people, and they confuse it also with the other 3. The many is it's actually what is known as semen or sperm, and that usually is the full ejaculation of the liquid in of itself. That discharge comes with force, and it comes due to a climax of lust. So when there is that discharge, the body pushes it out as a result. And it's an ejaculation, it comes with the force, and it has a smell, and it is thick, and it's white. These are all descriptions given to what is known as al-mani. So al-mani, it is well-known fact, and this is what most people really refer to generally. But there is 2 other types that are, usually they come either as a result. One of them is called medi, and that one is lighter It's lighter, and it's not full ejaculation, but rather it's just a leaking that comes out. Sometimes you don't even feel it. And it's just a leaking, and that comes as a result of one of two things. Either erotic thought, that usually people entertain an erotic thought, or it comes as a foreplay. And it is for both men and women. There is a foreplay without penetration, without ejaculation. There is still that leaking and wetness. And usually an erotic thought or foreplay result to that leaking from both men and women. That one does not constitute a major state of impurity. Janaba, it's not a janaba, but rather just a minor state of impurity, because when it comes to a janaba, a major state of impurity, that one requires and demands and imposes on the individual to do the actual full body wash, the ghusl. But when it comes to a minor state of impurity, it only requires the individual to wash the area and do regular wudu, because it falls under the category of urine and feces and passing gas. These are just what breaks usually the wudu. And when usually you go to the bathroom for number 1 or 2 where you pass gas, what do? You don't do full body ghusl. It is not required. What is required to really be able to pray and read Quran is actually just a wudu. So this is why it is very important to make that distinction between the two. Now, wet dreams. Somebody sleeps, and when you wake up, you find that your underwear is wet. That is sperm. That is it qualifies as full ejaculation out of your whole body, and it falls under the category of janaba. It's not a minor state of impurity, it's a major state of impurity, because that requires ghusl, not just for you to wash and do wudu and go about your business. Rather than the other category that is also from the same family, you have many, and we said that it is a full ejaculation of the semen out of the whole body. That categorizes the person being in a major state of impurity, janaba, that requires again ghusl. But when it comes to the leaking that comes out of either erotic thought or flirting or foreplay between men and women, that it only requires the washing of the area and changing the underwear, because that is also regarded as najis, as being impure, just like urine is najis, impure, feces is impure. Many, however, subhanallah, is not impure, tahir. Meaning, if it gets on your clothes and you do full body ghusl, you can wear the same clothes, because it is categorized as saliva, in the category of saliva. So when saliva gets on your clothes, it does not disqualify the clothing you wear from being able to wear them and perform salah with them and read Quran with them. On the other hand, if it is madi, which is a discharge, a very light liquid, a discretion and discharge that comes out of either foreplay or erotic thought, that is impure. Meaning, if it gets in your clothes, those clothes that are affected needs to be either washed or removed altogether, and you cannot wear them as is to either pray or read Quran. The third category is what is known as wadi, with a waw. The wadi comes also as a result of it's a leaking as well, and it is also light, and it is also a discharge, but it usually comes with urine. You don't even feel it sometimes. Usually it comes as a result of a laborious task, meaning if it is a physically taxing exercise by either men or women, that discharge usually comes out, and you find after that task, because it is so much physically on the body just discharges that liquid. Sometimes you don't even feel it, but you will find the wetness in the area that is also najis, impure. You cannot pray with it. It is the same as if you had leaking of, sometimes people think that it's a leaking of urine. It's not urine, rather, but it is the same as urine. Sometimes drops of urine come along with it. But this is why it is very important for us to make the distinction between what is wadi and what is madi and what is the mani. Mani falls under the category of a full and a major state of impurity. When it comes to wadi and madi, both of those qualify rather as just a minor state of impurity that requires only wudu in that regard. That said, inshallah ta'ala, go back and revisit all of these definitions so we can be able to make the distinction between when we are obliged to make ghusl and when we are obliged to do only wudu. To move either ghusl or wudu qualify you to move into a state of purity, tahara, at-tahara. That qualifies you by default to be able to pray, to be able to read the Quran and enter many of the acts of worship, hajj, tawaf, and all of those. It involves all of these acts of worship. And with that being the case, that is important for us to have in mind when we move into the tayammum. Now, when it comes to either ghusl or wudu, they require a very major element, water. It's a major element to be able to perform either ghusl or wudu. Question comes into scenarios. One is when you don't have water and you fall either under the category of a janaba, major state of impurity, or just a minor state of impurity, which is hadath asghar, and requires only wudu. Whether it is required for you to do either ghusl or to do wudu, and you don't have water, what do? This is where the tayammum comes in as a substitute for both wudu and ghusl. This is the tayammum comes in as a substitute, and pay attention to the word substitute, because anything that is called substitute is not permanent, meaning it is only temporary. Meaning the minute you find either wudu, water, when you find water, then tayammum is out the window, is cancelled out, nullified altogether. You can't do tayammum when you have water. The other scenario is when you have water, but you are sick. Or sick in a sense that you cannot do wudu, literally, you cannot move to go out to the bathroom and do wudu. Somebody who is laying flat on the ground, it is bound to his bed. Or a person who had a wound. If water gets in that wound, it's going to make it infected and causes that person harm and maybe death, which is exactly what happened to one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and we'll come to mention that instance. So whether you are sick or there is a lack of water, what is the solution? Is tayammum. What is tayammum? Is what we will inshallah ta'ala see in our next episode. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who when they heard the speech, they follow the best of it. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ala nabiyina Muhammad walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.